Let's talk about episode 4 of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, Verdun, September 1916, released in 1992. Written by Jonathan Hensley and directed by René Menzor. This is the first actual episode with Indy in World War I. Episode 2, London, May 1916, was about him getting enlisted and joining the Belgian army under the fake name Henry de Vos, and this is the first time we actually see him in action. He's working with the French as a motorcycle courier and delivers messages, to the front, but there is a lot of drama going on in the high command, and eventually the lives of thousands of soldiers are on the line and Indy has to make a decision. That's basically it for the main plot. In the framing device, again, we have old Indy. He's on an airline flight, and he's sitting next to a rich businessman who just bought the airline company, and who's gonna dissolve it, and that's gonna cost a bunch of people their jobs, and that's the motivation of Indy telling the story about superiors making decisions that have a terrible effect on the people working for them. I like this episode a lot. It does a good job showing the horrors of war to Indy. It has a pretty good dramatic story with a good point. I also like that Remy is in here, Indy's Belgian friend. I like the performances in here. And the episode just looks very good. You can tell how much money went into this show, by now, definitely. Another scene I like in here is when Indy is talking with his teammates and they talk about, why are we fighting? What was the reason behind this war? And Indy summarizes it as, so we're fighting for Serbia, a little country that no one has ever heard of. I just like that entire scene and the conversation there just because it's yeah, this war is fucking stupid and convoluted. I also have to talk about the German in this. So there's a scene where Indy is spying on two German officers and they seem to be actually German, they don't talk with an accent. Their lines feel somehow stilted a little bit. I don't know if that's just because the dialogue is written that way or their delivery, but generally they seem to be actual Germans talking German, no accent or anything. The same can't be said about Sean Patrick Flannery. Okay, not to be too harsh on the guy, because I get it. It's maybe unfair of me to just expect an actor to learn an entire language, or at least their lines, 5 or so lines in that language and say it, perfectly fine. But it was just so fucking hilarious in this, because they are looking for someone who speaks perfect German. So they get Indy, because, he is supposed to be fluent in a bunch of languages. And then we get the scene where Indy is talking German to, his French superiors. And it's, the most gibberish I've ever heard. And then the French guy is your accent is just perfect. He would be able to blend in. And then it doesn't matter at all, because Indy is just supposed to listen to Germans talk and then bring that information back to his superiors. How he speaks is completely fucking irrelevant. Why even have that scene? It would have been worse if it was you have to infiltrate German troops and pretend to be an actual German and fit in, and then his accent would have stood out even more. That would have been absolutely laughable. But here it's just he just needs to understand what they are saying. Why do you have to show him speaking like that? It was funny. I didn't hate it. It was funny, don't get me wrong. But yeah, that's... Oh boy. We're gonna see more of that later on, by the way. Again, not to be too harsh on Flannery here, but I remember an episode when little kid Indy, Corey Carrier, has to speak German, and he legitimately does a better job at it. But overall, this is a very fun episode, the first of the World War I episodes. It sets the tone very well, it's a horrifying conflict, and yeah, I like Flannery's performance overall. It looks very good, and it has a simple but intriguing premise, and Indy's decision he has to make at the end. It's all very well done and well told. Definitely recommend this episode.